It's been 36 years since the book Communion exploded into the public consciousness. It spent 6 months atop the bestseller lists. It sold millions of copies. It's inspired so many other similar books by other artists. It became a hit movie, and the guy who wrote it is our guest today, Whitley Strieber. Whitley, great to see you.
It's a pleasure to be here, George. They raped me. They gave me an erection.
Well, why do you think? Okay, so let's just.
This is Vetted. Hi, guys. Welcome to another episode of the Vetted, we'll call it UFO news podcast, I guess. Here we got Amy and Sebastian. We're happy to give you guys the latest UFO news. Happy 4th of July. How are we doing out there? How you guys doing, Amy, Sebastian?
Yeah, good. Thank you. Not too bad. Happy 4th of July, Americans.
Happy 4th of July. Yeah, how's it going?
Happy 4th of July, Americans. That sounded so awesome, Amy. That was great. Yes, for those of you
alien,
watching.
Right?
yeah, it sounded so alien. That definitely, if you're trying to hide it, Amy, that is not. Hello, Americans. I am here.
We don't celebrate over here.
So Amy and Sebastian are in the UK, so they are no, in fact, this date is probably not a good one for them, right? We're celebrating our independence from them. Holy cow,
exactly.
guys.
Yeah,
Listen,
right.
we're joining forces for this alien search. There are no country borders, no country lines. We are humanity, earthlings. Okay. Yes. Hello, Americans. I'm not going to get over that. That was great, Amy. All right. Well, as always, thank you. Great response to our first video that we put out, our first vetted episode as well. Great response, guys. Thank you guys for commenting and messaging and everything on Reddit. We got some interesting comments, though, too, like people calling us government shills. So just be prepared, Amy and Sebastian. There will be some negative comments thrown our way, but just brush them off, move on. I know you guys are not working for the government secretly. Right.
Knows,
Yeah. Who knows? Oh, great, Sebastian. There you go. Who knows? Oh, now they're going to be accusing us. Anyway, yes. So don't forget, every Monday, this is what we do. We put out the UFO news, and then every other Monday, so give us 2 weeks time, the vetted episode will come out again, just more in-depth reporting on the UFO topic. So we're going to be diving deep into the David Grusch claims of everything that's happening with that. At the end of this podcast, I'm going to include a clip of what's to come on the next episode of vetted. So, all right. So all the stories we're going to be talking about today, we've got Loeb update. We talked about him in the last show. So he's found more things out there, sphericals, he's calling them. Then Amy's got a great story to share with everyone. We're talking about an intergalactic conspiracy that involves the highest levels of government.
Oh, yes.
And little gray beings. So we're excited about that. And then I've got a great clip of an episode of the Weaponized podcast that most of you may know. It's hosted by Jeremy Corbell and George Knapp, two very prominent figures in the UFO community. And they had an author on from a book called Communion, which is what is basically the most well-known book about being abducted by aliens. And the picture that's on the front cover of that book is like the most well-known picture of like what they think an alien looks like, So we'll be showing that picture on the podcast here so you can see it, what it looks like, and a copy to get the book. But I thought the clip was interesting because the claims you're going to hear in this clip are quite crazy. So just be prepared. All right. And it was the 75th anniversary, I think. Some anniversary of Roswell just happened this past week. And guess what? They discovered for the first time ever a second debris field at Roswell. No joke, like some little separate little area where they think, other stuff, part of the crash is located, and they're going to test some of the materials they found. So that's kind of interesting on the, it's pretty interesting. And we're going to update everyone on David Grusch, what's going on with that. with that story and go over a little bit of our Reddit posts that we made. So anyway, that's what's coming out. Any questions, guys, before I move on?
Nope.
No, it's exciting.
Okay.
Yeah, a lot happened again, right?
Yeah, lots, and there's always more to include or not include with these stories, guys. So please tell us in the comments if there's particular type of UFO news that you want us to cover or whatever. Tell us, or a particular story, something we missed. Excuse me. So look, I also want to do this pretty much every show, and let me know in the comments as well. Just going to tell y'all some interesting podcasts that are out there right now to go listen to that are concerning the UFO community, new episodes. So this week, make sure you check out Ross Coulthart. He's on Theories of Everything podcast. He updated everybody on the David Grusch. It's the latest interview to check out. He also did an interview on Need to Know podcast, which I'm actually including a clip in that for today too. So you can see a clip from that show. And then the Weaponized podcast, check that out. And then Avi Loeb, who we are going to have on the next, I think 2 vetted episodes he'll be on. He's on the Merged podcast. So check that podcast out with Ryan Graves. He's the ex-fighter pilot who also saw UFOs, and he started a new podcast called Merged, and you should check that out. So again, let me know in the comments any other podcasts we should be mentioning. So yeah. All right, let's get to our first story here. Actually, Amy, let's start with you and your story. I think it's quite fascinating. So I'm going to pass it off to you, and you take it away.
Yeah, no worries. So we are looking at a guy called, we're not sure how to say his name, so apologies, Paul, if you are listening, Paul Askoff or Asko, Ascough, who is obviously an ex-military officer and also a member of the British UFO Research Association. And he has a new book out called UFOs, The Real Story. And his big claims within that book are that there has been a race of grey aliens who arrived to this planet during World War II. And ever since then, Western governments have been actively collaborating and colluding with them on some of the biggest advancements in technology that we will recognize. And his argument is that these advancements, obviously, kind of the rate at which we have advanced technologically has accelerated over the last decade or a few decades. And the reason for that is because of this collaboration and active involvement from extraterrestrial beings. He also says that they are actively involved in helping us as humans develop spacecraft similar to what they use, and there is this ongoing dialogue and collaboration and information sharing that has resulted in, as I mentioned, breakthroughs in technology that we would recognize, so such as fiber optics, microchips, synthetic fiber, Kevlar, and stealth technology. And the reason for those advancements are only because of this information sharing and collaboration with extraterrestrial beings. He also says that, clearly these are big projects that lots of people work on. So people have come into contact with these grey aliens, and to kind of sort of overcome this and make sure it doesn't spill out to the general public or the masses, there is a form of a Men in Black team in existence. He doesn't go into the detail of what that looks like, but there is this technology that exists to wipe memories, and I doubt they turn up in suits, and it's not Will Smith and Tommy Lee Jones, but there is someone that will knock on your door, have a conversation with you, and next thing you know, you can't remember any interaction with this project or with these people or with these beings.
Wow.
The final claim that he makes is that any top secret projects in the US have been moved away from Area 51 now. They don't exist there anymore. There's nothing to see. Stop going to see it. It's not a tourist attraction anymore. And they've moved to an area kind of colloquially known as Area 52, obviously, which, if anyone's interested, is south of Salt Lake City, but the exact whereabouts, I do not know. And that's about it from Paul.
Wow. Wow, that is. What do you think, Sebastian? What do you think of that?
Well, yeah, I mean, I think that's an incredible story. Yeah, I mean, it's amazing. I mean, it's quite funny that it all happens, around there in Utah, right? So
It's interesting, isn't it?
Yeah. Yeah.
Central
That's what
to
Skinwalker Ranch is. It's a ranch you'll hear that name a lot, Skinwalker Ranch, in this topic. And it's out there in outside of Salt Lake City as well.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of it is very far-fetched, isn't it? Memory wiping capabilities, teams of people, Men in Black teams, whatever it is. But what really stuck with me was that point about actually our knowledge and our advancements in technology have increased and have accelerated at rates we could not even envision back in the old days. Is that because there's somebody else helping us out? Yeah, no, I thought that stuck with me a little bit.
Yeah, that is an interesting point about it, right? Yeah, no, you're right. We jumped up. I mean, I wonder why World War II.
Yeah,
like why show up during that time? Is it the, if I say this word right, nuclear? I got in trouble online for saying that word wrong. Apparently, there's
okay,
exact right, and apparently it showed my stupidity by saying it wrong. That's what they let me know. So thank you, internet. But so I wonder if it's that reason, right? Or why World War II? That I always find that fascinating around that time. Yeah, that's interesting. There have been some other people that have made similar claims. David Grusch, who we're going to get into later, has made a somewhat similar claim, basically, that there is this alliance, that we have agreements with these beings. And they're helping us reverse engineer. But then I also think, wouldn't we be further advanced? Wouldn't we have flying cars and stuff? I mean, they're helping us with spacecraft and they haven't helped us yet. How many years has it been? Well, we don't have anything yet. How advanced are these beings? What if it was this, like these aliens come and they crash and then they're like, oh shit, Jim, we crashed here on Earth. Like, what are we going to do? Like, they probably think we're smart. Well, and they're just like total idiots, but they're trying to like convince, Earthlings that we're smart. And so they're like helping it. We'll help you build a craft, but they have no idea how to build a spaceship. Like, why would every alien know how to all of their technology? Does that make sense? Yeah, like if we send an astronaut to Mars, he doesn't know how to build a spaceship from scratch. Yeah. You know what I mean? What kind of nonsense is that? Like, why do these beings know how to build everything of everything? That doesn't make sense.
Everyone is an engineer, yeah. So
they're not all engineers.
Why have we made that assumption as well, that they are so far advanced, intelligence wise? They might not be.
I agree. I think that is a huge assumption that people make, and it's right off the bat. And now we're talking about, right, we're in this other world of they're so advanced, and we're never talk about maybe they're not that advanced, and that's why they're crashing and they don't know what's going on. No, great story, Amy. Great story. Tell us what you think in the comments of that. Is there Men in Black? Are they wiping our memory? I do have some nights in New Orleans that I cannot remember. Now, that could be for other reasons, alcohol, but I'm just saying, I don't know. Anyway, all right, Sebastian, what story you got? You chatted here. You got a story for us.
Yeah, so I got a story. So last week, one David Riedel wrote an article in the Huffington Post, right? And he is the son of one Patrick McGuire. And Patrick McGuire was a rancher in Wyoming who claimed that he was abducted by aliens. And he claimed it in 1981 on national television under hypnosis, right? So he was hypnotized by live on television, and then reported that basically his cattle, so basically, as I said, he was a cattle rancher in Wyoming, his cattle had been mutilated by aliens, and then those aliens abducted him, right? So this guy is not what you would call, some sort of airy-fairy dreamer, right? So he was really like, proper redneck, rancher, right? So really kind of down-to-earth kind of guy, and obviously, he made himself completely like the laughing stock of the village. Everybody laughed about him. Everybody ridiculed him, right? Nobody believed him, obviously. And he got so obsessed with this idea of that he had been abducted, and that the deep state, again, already back then in 81, there were rumors that the government is somehow involved, where sort of he got so obsessed with this idea that unfortunately he became an alcoholic, so self-medicated with alcohol, and then lost his ranch, and died a few years ago. And so his son now, who always thought that his dad was like crazy, or like, mentally ill, or however you want to call it, right? He now, afterwards, everything that's going on, even after when even Obama admitted, that he can't explain all of that footage that he has seen, he said, well, maybe my dad was right, So I always thought he was a joke, but not so much anymore. Maybe he was right and he was abducted. So unfortunately, I was never really able to say goodbye to my dad, probably, and now I feel sorry for it, because maybe he was correct in the end and not just like a fool. Yeah.
Wow.
Wow.
That's devastating, right? To think that later on. At least he's coming around, though, right? For his dad.
Yeah.
That story seems like there's a lot of those kind of stories where someone says, hey, I had this experience, and the people around them that they love and trust are like, you're crazy.
Yeah.
Like that has to happen to a lot of people. Wow. That's crazy. That's all the best to that gentleman and his journey through life with that, right? Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, definitely, yeah.
For sure. Wow, that's there's a lot of cattle mutilation stuff. To be honest with you, like that to me is the most fascinating part of the UFO stuff. Like it's in the top 2 for me, like cattle mutilation, because that's one of those, it's so hard to explain away.
It is very, isn't it? Yeah.
The countless stories that there are of it, and the pictures and the like evidence that they have of certain stuff. It's like, okay, this does not add up. Like there's so much of it. It's kind of, yeah, that's crazy. Wow.
But I think what we should tell, Patrick, is we should tell, basically, we should invite everyone. I mean, if you have been abducted by aliens, or if you've seen aliens, please come on the show. We want to hear your story. We want to share your story. So by any means, just contact us, send us a message, a private message, and all the details are here in the show notes. Come on here, tell your story. We would be fascinated to listen to your story. And I'm sure a lot of people would be interested to hear too.
Yeah, absolutely.
Definitely.
100%. If you want to stay secretive, we can set it up that way. Prefer you give your name and are able to tell the story, just for people listening and watching, to be able to not verify it or anything, but yeah, absolutely. Please send us your stories, any new ones, as crazy as you think they might be. All right, guys, let's jump into this next story. I got to play a clip for you guys.
It's been 36 years since the book Communion exploded into the public consciousness. It spent 6 months atop the bestseller list. It sold millions of copies. It's inspired so many other similar books by other artists. It became a hit movie, and the guy who wrote it is our guest today, Whitley Strieber. Whitley, great to see you.
It's a pleasure to be here, George. They raped me. They gave me an erection.
Well, why do you think, okay, so let's just...
What about the women who lost fetuses and eggs, and the other men who had semen taken from them?
Why do you think that's being done?
You have to let people go where they want to go.
But why would these beings be doing this to human beings if it's true?
Let me give you some possibilities. One, they are making a sort of seed bank of mankind. The second possibility is that they're breeding human beings.
Hybrid.
A hybrid is another story, because I'm talking about just breeding human beings.
All right.
I've heard there's contactees, abductees, and experiencers.
Experiencer is someone who has ongoing experiences with the visitors. An abductee is someone who basically started out generally with being abducted. A contactee is not necessarily someone who has had a physical encounter. They have a much more positive attitude toward the whole thing than those of us who've been dragged out into the night and raped.
Wow.
Wow.
It's yeah. What are y'all's first thoughts?
Where do you start?
What did y'all what
aliens?
like what claims do y'all think like he made? Like why don't y'all steel man back, right? Like what he said in the video. Amy, what do you think he said?
Let's say he's saying that he was kidnapped or abducted, and that essentially he was raped in order to harvest, presumably, his semen and sperm, and similar, although genetically different, has happened to women. But I didn't get a sense from that he was clear on why that was happening, and I think he was asked that directly. I don't know if I missed something there, but I didn't think his answer, and essentially acceptably for me, answered why.
That's a great summarization. That's exactly it. What are your thoughts on it? Like, what do you think? I don't know.
What do I think? I mean,
have you ever heard anyone tell an abductee story before? Like, have you ever seen some show or a documentary or something where you've seen that before?
I have, yeah, and it's it's all in that kind of similar vein that they're interested in the inner workings of the human, aren't they? So whether that be in this case reproductive biology or other organs and all of that kind of stuff. But what's amazing to me is that with all these stories, everybody seems to remain unharmed. They come back from it with very little evidence of any intrusion, although this gentleman suggests there might be. I mean, clearly for him, it's very emotional, and he's quite upset by it. I think you can tell that in his language and his tone of voice. And it's easy to laugh at these people, isn't it? Especially when we're talking about this sort of area and erections and all this sort of stuff.
I know.
But clearly for him, it's upset him, and it's not something he is necessarily that comfortable. This is what I picked up. I didn't think he was necessarily that comfortable about talking about it. He's obviously talking about it on a podcast and probably doing some more interview rounds. So
he did a whole book.
Yeah, well, exactly. Yeah. So I'm very similar to the interviewer in that. Why are they doing this? What do you think?
Yeah, absolutely. What do you think, Sebastian?
Well, it's certainly some sort of sexual fantasy, right?
That's quite a story.
I guess most young men, when they grow up, they have kind of, I guess, more conventional sort of dreams. But but in all seriousness, he did sound really upset, and it really seemed that he had some sort of traumatic experience, right? Whatever that was. So, and I think that he can't explain it really properly makes sense, because how could he possibly know what their intentions were, right? They wouldn't share it with him, right? So it could mean anything, right? It could be some reproductive experiments. We know this from terrifying dictatorships. What the Nazis did, for example, right? They did reproductive experiments, right? With concentration camps, right? So it brings up the darkest chapters in history. So that would be I guess a common thing, or is it that do they want to create some sort of creature? Who knows, right? But I think that he can't explain makes only sense, because how could he possibly explain? But one could see that it certainly made a big impression on his mind, and I don't think it's something he. For any man, being raped is not something that you would, for any woman, obviously not also, but for especially for a man, it would also be very embarrassing, right? So I don't think it's something you would share lightly. It seems very, he seems to be very, much traumatized by it, I would say.
Yeah, no, absolutely. That's the case for sure. Yeah,
It's
I mean, I
interesting, isn't it?
agree with
Because
them.
in one sentence he's claiming that they're harvesting reproductive tissues and materials, but then also why would they need to rape him for that?
Well, they used I didn't
Is he
show it
just
in the
is he talking about
clip, but
sexual assault? Is he
yeah,
using
I mean, yeah,
private
you're right.
nudity?
He talks about a machine that they use that's something very similar that they use on animals to extract semen. Some
Yeah,
sort of
okay.
electrical thing that hit him, gave him the erection, and I guess it sucks out the semen. I mean, I'm sorry, this is so graphic. But this is what he's saying happened. But yeah, some machine did it. So it wasn't like an alien, mounted him and said, you're my bitch and whatever. Yeah, it's horrible, right? Like that what he's saying.
It's horrible,
Yeah,
yeah.
that's
It's truly
that's
horrific. And
it is. It's hard to it's hard to criticize his story, and it's hard to go after the story because look at the claim he's making, right? I mean, the R word comes out and you're like, well, can't touch that.
yeah, well, yeah, exactly.
You know what I mean? Someone makes that claim, I will say this, a lot of his story came from hypnosis later on. So when he had his incident, it wasn't until years later when he was under hypnosis that like aliens and all of that information came out. So originally that's not what he thought. So take that however you want, right? Whether that makes you believe more or less, I don't know, but just for context and information. So
there could be some trauma, something that he experienced. I mean, maybe even, one doesn't want to think about it, but like as a young person, as a child, and this is some way he rationalizes it, right? So some horrible event that happened to him early on, and that's how he makes sense of it.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
All right, I'm going to move us on to the next story. Basically let me make sure, but I'm pretty sure our big story, right? I don't have my notes in front of me anymore. So I'm assuming it's the big story. Let me pull it up again. Yes. Oh no, the second Roswell debris field. Okay, so real quick, because I want to get to this David Grusch before we run out of time. Where is it? What did I do with that? Oh, did I not put a thing for? Oh no, I did. Okay, so yeah. So again, basically what I said, we'll put a link to a news article or a news segment you can watch on it. But basically, yeah, two guys went out, whole team, on the anniversary of the Roswell crash. And they found another site where they think the debris was. So they have where they think is the crash site. Then closer to town, there's this smaller site that they found that they're calling the debris field. So some of the debris from the ship, is still there. And they were basically saying like, because of the weather, it sort of brought stuff up from the ground. And they were able to see it for the first time in a long time, right? So again, they're going to take all these things that they found. They're not really going into detail on what that stuff is. I will say that. I tried to find out, like, what is it? What did y'all find? It's just metal stuff. Who knows? They're not showing any pictures. So we'll find out if it's anything, but, thought that was interesting. For sure. Because people go out to Roswell, New Mexico. It's a big thing every year to celebrate. I don't know if you celebrate it, a crash. Does that right to celebrate? Now that I'm thinking about it, is that right to celebrate a crash and the death of aliens on that special day? That's essentially what we're doing.
I guess the first encounter, right? At least that we know.
Yeah, that's essentially it. The holy grail of encounters. So anyway, yeah, second debris field found, and we'll keep y'all updated as that comes through and we know more about it. But yeah, let's jump into the David Grusch stuff because it's dominating all the UFO Twitter and everything, UAP Twitter. So this is what I'm going to do real quick. I'm going to play a clip to sort of recap everything about David Grusch, right? So if you sort of forgot who he is, some of the things he said, here's like, it's just a little bit over a minute here, but it'll sort of summarize everything about him.
Bombshell claims from a military whistleblower.
David Grusch.
David Grusch. David Grusch.
Former Pentagon official David Grusch
claims he's viewed evidence of the UFO crash retrieval program.
The UAP task force has refused access to a broad crash retrieval program.
So you're vouching for this guy?
What incentive would so many people with that kind of qualification have to come forward and make something up?
Secrets he says no one has ever shared publicly before.
These are retrieving non-human origin technical vehicles, call it spacecraft if you will, non-human, exotic origin.
Non-human origin.
So you would think things like actually having alien bodies would be much more significant evidence of there being aliens.
No evidence has been presented at all.
I don't want to be proven wrong about aliens.
What is there to these claims that have been made?
If you're following stuff about aliens and about UFOs and what U.S. lawmakers are saying about all of this, things are very confusing right now.
Are we alone? And if we were not, would you even tell us?
I would refer that question to the Department of Defense and let them answer that question for you. Go ahead.
We have spacecraft from another species.
We do, yeah.
Alien spacecrafts. Certainly interesting.
Certainly interesting, Barbara. I cannot believe it. Can you believe it? We got spaceships, aliens. My neighbor Jim, he's probably an alien. Okay. Yeah, so there's a little recap of sort of David Grusch, the claims he's made. Clearly it's going all kinds of news. There's all kinds of news segments I didn't include. Like, it's everywhere. People are definitely talking about him and what he said, the claims he made. So just to kind of update everyone on some other things, I'm going to play another clip here in a minute, but basically he came out and said, or they came out, the journalist who did the interview, the guy you saw in that video, one of the guys, Ross Coulthart, apparently they made a separate interview, like a backup interview before they did that News Nation one, in case something happened or whatever. They wanted to have sort of this set up for this backup interview. So that's kind of interesting. That kind of leaked online, like a little clip of it, which I'm going to include. I'm going to show that clip. He essentially says the same stuff, to be honest with you. And a Dutch article came out in a Dutch newspaper. Okay, first question, why Dutch? Why this is so weird? Okay, yes, it is kind of strange. Well, it turns out the journalist is a friend of Luis Elizondo. Luis Elizondo is another figure in this community who we've spoken about before. He is friends with David Grusch, so I think he turned him on to this guy. So like when our next Vetted episode comes out next week, what I'm focusing on about David Grusch is the News Nation interview, because that seems to be his best foot forward for his claims. Yeah. And I want to give him the best arena to play in if we're going to sort of come at him and try to, verify what he's saying, right? So, because the backup interview is very low quality, and again, he's just saying the same stuff. The Dutch article, he's pretty much saying the same stuff. And in fact, they're kind of making fun of him a little bit by some of the pictures they show. They show some like doctored pictures of aliens, just like, why not show some real UFO pictures and stuff? Like, why are you showing this weird George Bush with an alien? Like, it's just weird stuff. So I thought, you know what? Let's use his best foot forward that he wanted to present his claims to the world, right? So I figured that would be the best. That way, I don't know if people are going to attack us for how we looked into his claims. Hey, we used his best foot forward. I'm not picking low-hanging fruit as far as that goes. So yeah, it's quite interesting. There's no new claims, anything like that. He has testified He's either testified or is setting up the testifying, because I'm hearing both things. So I'm not sure if it is already happened or is being set up to happen, but one of those things is true. For those of you watching, listening, if you know anything about that, put that in the comments. Let us know what's going, if you've heard something different than me. What you guys have any, I don't know, questions?
So that is the problem remains, right? That nothing. I mean, we haven't seen anything, right? I mean, there has been no evidence, no pictures, nothing. I mean, and I mean, I'm starting to wonder. I mean, maybe we should get a lawyer into this show and invite him, like who knows about ex-military members. I mean, as an ex-military member, can I just claim anything without any repercussions, right? I mean, can I just say from when I mean, especially when it's about aliens, because when it's about aliens, I mean, I'm not really making any false statements about anyone necessarily in the military, right? So I'm not saying they have done something wrong. I'm not revealing any secrets. Probably, I mean, who knows? Maybe it is all top secret, right? Yeah. It's not that I'm like that other guy, that was arrested recently. Sort of leaked battle plans from Ukraine, right?
Oh yeah,
that shows, that shows like stuff, secret positions of aircraft and of teams and all that stuff, right? So this is just, I mean, so the question is, can anyone claim anything once they left the military, as long as it doesn't sort of, it's not about top secret programs and other stuff. So because if that would be the case, is there any chance that there would ever be any real clarification from the military that they say, well, this guy is talking rubbish, or do they just continue to say we're not commenting, and by that making it all a lot worse, right?
They've commented. They have. Sorry, Amy. They have put out a statement, the Pentagon, to David Grusch's claims, saying that there is no verifiable evidence or proof to his claims. So they comment, but not much. That's nothing.
That makes it just worse, that comment, right? Because that, I mean, you would expect them to say that, right?
I mean, what are they going to say? Well, he's right. We do have those alien spacecraft. They're right over here, mile marker 12. Yeah. Let me take you over there. Like, what are they? Yeah, stay out of it. Exactly. Like, what are they going to say to that? That's also a fascinating point.
It's really interesting to me that the White House pass it over to the Department of Defense. Why can't they comment as the overarching governmental lead?
I agree.
Why can't
they think it's a joke? They literally think it's a joke. The first part of that clip that you see at the White House press briefing, the woman's asking the question. Well, there's a first part to that where she's asking. It was just too long for me to include it, but they're laughing when they start to ask the question. So there's this UFO whistleblower, right, guy? I don't want to look crazy over here asking that question, lose my access. So it's crazy, right? UFO aliens. What do you think, Karine? Right? I mean, that's how they ask it. They don't. It's not like a real whistleblower situation, like Snowden and the NSA spying on Americans, right? Like they ask those questions, like Sebastian said, right? The other example, like you ask seriously, right? So they're not taking this seriously. Like they are and they're not. Yeah. It's weird. It's like depending on who you talk to, some senators or congressmen, they're all in. They believe it. You saw Marco Rubio in there. He's like, listen, for the last couple of years, I've been on briefings of people saying stuff like David Grusch is saying. Just like him, people with very high clearances. I don't understand why they would say this. They'll lose their clearance and go to jail if we can prove they're lying. So why would they say this stuff? I mean, it's outlandish. So that really gets you to think, like, why would they say? I mean, they could lose everything to say this. Like, why would a guy like David Grusch come out and make those claims? Is that how he wants his military career to end? For everyone to, you know what I mean? To look at him as like, what? Aliens and space?
I mean, he doesn't really, if you really dissect what he says, maybe I'm wrong, but from what I've heard, he does not really mention names, right? So he's not saying General XYZ.
Correct.
He's the guy.
Correct.
I mean, This is the person. He just says some people somewhere in some department. He doesn't say, this is the address on the 3rd floor. Go into this office and you will actually see the stuff, right? It's
now
all
he has given that information. He has given that information to Congress. So the people that have said, I've put my hands on these spacecraft and I worked on these programs, those people have testified to Congress and are testifying to Congress. Like, it's a bunch of people. It's not just one guy or something. David Grusch is just the first one to come out. So, and you know what? What I learned too on the Ross Coulthart podcast, Need to Know, so please check that out. He basically says, like, this was a test for other whistleblowers. They wanted to see how the public and how the government would treat David Grusch. And if they liked it, then they're like, well, I'll come out too. But if it was bad, they're like, I ain't coming out. Right? Look what happened to that guy. You know, and that's interesting. That's also interesting. So
when were those hearings like secret at Congress, or were they like public?
No, not public. They're all on camera interviews behind closed doors. So we'll never see that stuff unless they decide.
So we don't know what they. So we don't. I mean, we don't know really what they said, right? I mean, we think they said, but we don't know really what they said.
They go and tell the journalists, "Hey, this is what I told Congress," but we have no way to verify. Right? What it is. Yeah.
So I think that is the problem, right? And I mean, I'm just playing devil's advocates now, right?
No,
so, I mean,
we need it.
If you think that, you know, what could he get out of it? I mean, I don't know. I mean, he could get book deals, film deals, you know. I mean, if that's the sort of publicity that he wants, you know, as someone who maybe he was in the armed forces, and, you know, he has seen others like Luis Elizondo, who no doubt make, you know, as we know, you know, made quite a lot of money out of all of this, right? After he left the government. So he could see that as a template and say, well, I mean, you know, if you play devil's advocates, I come up with these stories and, you know, nobody can ever really verify it. I'm making sure I'm not damaging. No, I'm not revealing stuff that is really secret, or that, you know, I'm not naming anyone individually who could be involved in it. I'm making sure that I'm staying within the boundaries of what I'm allowed to say as an ex-military member, right? I mean, his reputation obviously is ruined, right? But I mean, one could think, well, for fame and publicity, people have done worse, you know. Stranger things have happened, right?
Absolutely, 100%. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, he went through official. It's not like most of the stories you see on, you know, documentaries and these Amazon Prime documentary and all this stuff, right? Ex-military official, they worked in the military. Years later, they come out with some story. That's the path it's taken. What makes David Grusch unique is he went through the government. He said he filed an an inspector general complaint, right? He went through I forget what the office is called, but the office of basically where you check with them to see what you're allowed to talk about, and if you're going to publish something. So he went through all the channels. He did everything legitimate that no UFO whistleblower has ever done. No one has ever taken these steps. That's what makes it very unique as well. Again, people are seeing, how is he doing it? Okay, it went well. I'm going to come out now and do it. So there could be a flood, a waterfall, a broken dam, right? Of all this stuff to come out here in the next whatever. But I will say, for those new to this topic, this gets said a lot in this topic. It's just around the corner. It's coming. There's a wave. They've been saying that since I don't know what, like forever. Like they just constantly say that. So is this another one of those things? I don't know. You know, but it is interesting for sure.
On May 8th, what happened is there was a decision that, hey, maybe he'll get nervous and he won't want to do this, or something will come up, or God forbid, we show up at the News Nation interview on May 9th and there's federal marshals there to arrest him and take him away. I mean, we just weren't sure. So there was a sort of a feeling at that lunch we had that we ought to try to get him on tape as a safety copy, if nothing else, that we would have some tape made. So we kind of went into overdrive on that afternoon. And literally, I called my son, who's a filmmaker, Jared Zabel, and I said, hey, grab your camera, come on over to the house, and let's do this interview. So we put Dave on tape for a couple of hours, as I recall it.
So you've spoken to people with direct knowledge
Yes,
of a secret legacy UFO program.
correct.
You're saying that the United States government has retrieved alien technology.
Yes, the assessment was non-human, presumably extraterrestrial, but we do have retrieved non-human material and craft that we have in our possession.
Do we have alien bodies?
We do.
Yeah. That's what made me think this was very rehearsed, right? David Grusch's interview on News Nation. You see this interview. It's like that journalist is just like helping him give the interview, which seems like, right? That seems so weird as a journalist that you're walking through this person through all the questions and the answers instead of, let me just ask him the questions and get his first initial reactions to this, instead of coaching him on how to say it and what to say. And that, I don't know, that takes a lot of the wind out of my sails of like, I don't like that. I don't like that it's so rehearsed. I can see reasons for it, right? It's a serious thing. We want to make sure we get your story out correctly. But okay, I get that. But you know,
I think for me that's almost normal, right? I mean, because you need to. So here's someone who is not like used to giving interviews, right? So you want to make clear that you rephrase the question in your own words, and then for him to just confirm, yes or no, that would happen. I don't think that's a bad sign, to be honest.
That's interesting. Yeah,
that's just an interview. So that's just an interview technique, I think, to make it absolutely clear that the interviewer has understood, by basically rephrasing the question.
Sure.
That make sure you understood it correctly.
Yeah, I don't know, just like with this thing, the more I see things staged, it just red flags go off for me. It totally makes sense what you're saying, Sebastian, like that totally makes sense. But there's something in my gut about it that just like I don't know.
I think what was interesting was the co-host that he said they were afraid that marshals would come along. For what? I mean, what would they arrest him on, right?
That's what they were worried at, like, oh, he's going to blow the lid on our whole UFO retrieval program. We better go arrest them right now. Where are they at? They're at McDonald's. Let's grab them, guys. Like, yeah, it seemed kind of odd. That was another reason I heard them say is that they were afraid the News Nation may get cold feet and not want to air the interview. So they were like, let's have our own interview in case they're like, nope, we're not airing it. It's too crazy or whatever. So that's why they did this one as well, which that definitely makes sense for sure. But again, your answers are going to seem a little staged. So people are going to notice that when they watch, and they don't know all the context. They don't know journalism. They don't know that maybe it's a regular practice. They don't know that, yada, yada, yada. All they know is there's something off about the way he's answering these questions. It doesn't seem like he actually thinks we have aliens and crash craft. Because wouldn't you be like, holy shit, we got crash craft. Like, oh my God, our world. So, this is the end. This is everything we know is change. Instead he's just like, yeah, we got aliens. Like, I don't know. Just because he's answered the question 100 times.
Yeah.
So it makes sense that, he's deluded himself and deluded himself, if I can use that correctly, wordplay. Right. But I don't know. What do y'all think? Does it seem legit? Does he seem crazy? Again, we're go ahead, Amy.
I agree. It's definitely, it feels to me like it's message fatigue from him. He said it 1,000 times over and over. He's probably tired of saying it. But he's got to. He started now. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, that's a good point.
You can't stop.
That's a good point.
He's very slick, which makes it seem over-rehearsed and staged.
I wonder if he's married and like what his wife thinks. If he's, you know what I mean?
Question.
That's quite a story to bring home to the dinner table.
You're full of shit, David.
Yeah, you're full of shit. Oh, honey, yeah, I can't believe you're telling them about UFOs and aliens. Oh, jeez. Like, I think that's the person you would want to ask and see their face. First off, what do you think about your husband's claims? Right away, you would get an indication. Do they immediately go to answer? Do they hold back? Are they quiet? You would know right away. Because I would have to assume that whoever if you're married, right, your partner gets to know you better than anybody. Yeah. They know when you're lying or telling the truth. It doesn't matter what it is; they're going to know. Yeah. So I'd be curious to hear from his wife or his mom or something, right? That like really knows. David, are you talking about UFOs again? We've had this talk. Anyway, all right, guys, that's it on our end. Don't forget to check out the podcast every Monday. New vetted episode next Monday. I'm not going to play it right now, but right at the tail end of this, I'm going to put a little preview of what's coming for the next episode.
Yes,
so,
and I mean, there's one very exciting story. I mean, I'm not sure if you heard about that, Patrick or Amy, but I mean, we posted a video like recently about these underwater UFOs, and I'm not sure if you've read it. There are claims that this Titan submersible that went down to Titanic potentially might have interfered with by extraterrestrial underwater UFOs, So that's a very, very current story, right? So we need to make sure we follow up on this,
Yeah, for sure. I honestly didn't even think about that, to be honest. Yeah, absolutely. The Titan submersible. We'll take a look at that for next week and see if there's anything, what we can pull together from that, because I did hear that as well, which if that's the case, that would be tragic because people lost their lives. So
sad.
Yeah. Well, tell us what you think in the comments. Do you think that was a USO that got them? By the way, what I put on Reddit, we didn't have a chance to go over the Reddit stuff, so we'll try to get to that next week. But the post I put on Reddit about the submerged vehicles, it went crazy. Like people are very into that. Like, what is this about? So anyway. All right, guys. Yeah, that's all I got.
There are like potential claims that they're like underwater UFO bases right up there, up north, right?
Correct.
In near Alaska. I mean, but in the northern.
Apparently, there's a whole dark. There's what they call the dark continent, and there's a whole like continent the size of North America underneath the water that we have not explored, and that's crazy. That is crazy. That's a lot. So it's possible that there are these bases and transmedium, right? As we discussed in the first episode of Vetted, check that out. Near the end of the episode, we go into that. It's a great sighting that's on there that we showed. Good part of the episode. So anyway. All right, guys. Anything else? Please, again, comment, subscribe, like, share, tell us what you got going on. And that's it for me, guys. What do y'all got? Right.
That's good. And by the way, just one thing about Avi Loeb, quite interesting. The BBC had an article out only 7 days ago on his project. That's quite interesting. Yeah.
Did we go over the Avi Loeb thing? We did, right?
We didn't. Yeah, not this time. I don't think we did. No.
Oh, I thought I mentioned it at the beginning and then I did it real quick. He got, this is all the data you need to know. Can't believe I forgot to bring that up. I thought I did. 50 sphericals weighing 35 milligrams. So that's a thing. Could be non-human tech. They got composition somewhat preliminarily. I don't know if that's the right word to use there. But they're going to be getting, doing more tests and finding it. So there's a Medium article. We'll put a link to it again, he does like a diary so you can find out everything that's going, but that's the latest up to date on that. And they're done with the trip. They're headed back to the mainland now. So we'll see. We'll find out. We might have our first piece of non-alien or non-human tech. So anyway, yeah.
Hey guys.
We'll put a link to everything. Thank you guys for watching and listening. We'll see you guys next time on Vetted Podcast News next Monday.
A lot of people in the UFO community have said, is it any coincidence that we developed and then used in anger the bomb in 1945, and then 2 years later we had Kenneth Arnold, flying saucers, and then Roswell, and the birth of the modern phenomenon? Did this put us on the map?
We'll also discuss what UFO disclosure actually means and how it could impact society.
You know, what will be the impact on politics, religion, science, technology, the economy? Because make no mistake about it, every aspect of society will be impacted in a profound way, I'm sure.
Thanks for watching. Please like and subscribe. Follow us on Twitter at Vetted Podcast. This is Vetted.